Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Hello, and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Robert Hoffman. And Robert, welcome back to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Joe. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
And so you're international again. Tell us what's going on.
Okay, well, the main purpose of my trip was to conduct some procedures, some paper procedures. We have a subsidiary company, a subsidiary cancer company in Korea called MetaBio. So that was my purpose for this trip. I had to show up in person for it, it's a nice company. They're doing a lot of good things for the cancer patient, and so that was my purpose for the trip. Of course, I'd rather be back in the laboratory where I belong, but it's okay.
Your mission is very strong, and you're getting a lot of positive work done. Sometimes it means you got to do administrative things, and other times you get to play in the lab, right?
That's right. That's right, Joe.
I totally understand. I do the same thing. I love to formulate and experiment, but most of the time you just got to get out there and work. So
that's right.
It's exciting.
Right.
So I have a lot of update to share with you. And I think a lot of this has to do with, I've really taken on the mantle of this paradigm. I have come to an understanding and an awareness of the importance of this diet and understanding some things about cancer that just people don't seem to understand. And wherever I go, I hear the same stories. You know, you got to cut the sugar out, and you got to cut the carbs out, and meanwhile they're eating all this meat and protein. And I cringe now when I hear these things, because I just know that's what I was doing when this tumor was growing so rapidly, and no matter what I did, it wasn't stopping. And I know that this experience that I've gone through has been life-changing, obviously. It's given me a voice and a tool that can get people's attention in a way that maybe not everybody can. And like today, I was able to speak at the Rotary Club on behalf of my nonprofit. We do the garden therapy and things like that, and we're looking to get some support from them. But I was able to tell them my story. And, this has only been a 5-week, less than 6 weeks since I was at death's door. I mean, I was really in a difficult place, and I was struggling, in every way possible. And we were literally scrambling, trying to come up with answers and get them implemented. And in the last 6 weeks, there's been this, complete miracle that's happened. And I only say miracle because it's miraculous, not that it was necessarily this supernatural thing. It was a really good, solid plan that we executed and did a lot of hard work to cause this miracle to happen. But I was able to tell the story to these people, and I was told at the end of this presentation by the Rotary Club that this was the most inspirational story that they've heard from any of their guests they've ever had. And I thought
that is so fantastic.
Yeah,
that is really fantastic.
Yes, and this is the Rotary Club. They have guests every week on their thing, and they're an international organization. And I just thought to myself, that is powerful, because after this little presentation, every single one of them came up to me and shook my hand and asked me questions. And I thought to myself, this is a gift. I have the ability to share some truths that I've learned and help some people save their lives, and hopefully reach out, and hopefully this message will reach the medical community, and and practitioners and doctors at one point will listen. And I want to share the story with you. Since we last spoke, it's been a couple weeks, but this tumor has continued to shrink. I've continued to gain strength, and I'm even putting some weight on, and still maintaining the diet very strictly. I'm just taking on some more, things like potatoes and these glass noodles and things like that that have a little calories, but hitting it with the enzyme, doubling up my methionase, and just making sure that I don't give it anything to eat. But I was thinking, and I'm always trying to learn more and trying to understand, this. Like you say, doctors don't know cancer. They don't know it. And, they try to affect it and change it. But the truth is there's more unknown than there is known about this condition they call cancer. And it's unique to every individual that has it. But there's certain things that are a thread of consistency. There are truths that affect it, like the methionine addiction and that sort of thing. So in this diet, I go counter to everything I believed was right, and I eat a lot of fruit. And fruit is a big part of my diet right now. And where I was coming from with the keto and the sugar removal and all of this, fruit was like kryptonite, right? It's got a fructose, a double sugar. It's hard for your body. It feeds the cancer. Everything about it was wrong. And so I wasn't eating any of it. I was eating a lot of vegetables and a lot of protein. That was primarily my diet. And so since sitting with the group, the 4 o'clock Sunday group, for about 3 months now, almost 4 months, listening to all the people and their experiences, and many of them have been battling and dealing and managing their cancer for many years with this diet and these practices. You got to listen to them, right? If what they're doing is working, you got to take note of that, which I certainly have. And Dr. Exame and all of his strategies and your ideas and all this. And it came to me. So with this chemotherapy that we came up with, there's 3 drugs. They're potent drugs. Not a light dose. I'm having a meaningful dose, and it hits me hard. I know it. But the way chemotherapy works, the way I understand it, is it gets into your bloodstream and attaches to the glucose molecules, and it floats around in your bloodstream. And the cells that are the most active are the ones that are taking it in the most, right? And
Okay, well, the chemo doesn't attach to glucose,
oh,
Joe.
okay,
It gets into the cell it gets into all the cells by themselves. That's one symptom of getting into all the cells is you lost your hair.
sure.
And it had a big effect on the hair because the hair cells, the cells that produce the hair is not alive anymore, but
Right.
it's from cells that were formed by living cells. And those cells are the most rapidly dividing in the body, more than
Okay.
almost any cancer. So they're very susceptible to chemotherapy, this type of chemotherapy you're getting. We
Got
call
it.
it cytotoxic chemotherapy, cell toxic.
Okay.
So, and the cancer cell, uh, actually, there's not enough of them dividing at any one time very often to get the desired effect of killing a lot of them. If the cancer cell is not dividing, or any cell that's not dividing, is resistant to the kind of chemo you're getting. Resistant. That doesn't affect a non-dividing cell. So the methionine restriction, diet methionase, what it does, it selectively arrests the cancer cells when they're trying to divide. So this is the key. So there's more and more cells that are then targets for your chemo because of the methionine restriction. That's the principle.
Got it.
It's really simple. The methionine restriction has an effect on the cancer cells and not the normal cells that it arrests them when they're trying to divide. They need more methionine to continue their division. They don't have it. And by being stuck or arrested in this attempt to divide when they're trying to replicate their DNA, makes them more susceptible to the chemo than they would have been if you weren't on methionine restriction. So that's a point.
Got it. So do you think that the substantial addition of fruit, which has a lot of sugar in it, in addition to all the fiber and the things, I know it gets released at a metered rate, but still I eat a lot of fruit. Do you think that, the cancer cells are going to feed off of that? Even if they can't divide, they're still taking in this energy. And do you think that that affects in any way the chemo's ability to get in there and find it?
No,
Oh, okay.
I don't think it affects the ability of the chemo to enter the cancer cells.
Got it.
All all cells need sugar. All cells need glucose. This
Right.
is their fuel,
Correct.
their energy source.
Mm-hmm.
They need it. But in order to kill cancer, you need to find something that the cancer cell needs much more than the normal cells. It's not glucose, it's methionine.
Right, right.
How do we know that? Well, we know it, for example, from your great reaction, your great response. That tells us just volumes.
Absolutely.
But we also know it by PET imaging. So PET imaging can use a radioactive form of glucose or a radioactive form of methionine. And when you compare them head to head, and not all, but most, maybe the vast majority, you get a better signal from the radioactive methionine PET. Why? Because the difference in the uptake of the radioactive methionine, the requirement in the cancer cells, is much more than the surrounding tissue. So you get a big signal. Regarding glucose, you get some signal. The cancer cells seem to need a little bit more glucose than the surrounding tissue, but the signal is often weak.
Got it.
So you get the addiction to methionine is much greater in the cancer cells than the addiction to glucose. So that's what we want to target. You target glucose, you're going to die. You can't.
Right.
You go into this complete starvation.
Right.
It's just not a targetable. It's just glucose is just not targetable. The brain needs more glucose than any cancer.
Agreed.
So glucose is just not a target. And yeah, you eat anything you eat will feed the cancer. But if the cancer is not getting enough methionine, then that overcomes everything. That the cancer then gets into big trouble. It stops dividing, and it becomes the target for the chemotherapy. If the cancer were like a petri dish in the laboratory, we wouldn't need chemo. We could starve the cancer of methionine sufficiently. We don't need the chemo.
Right.
But the body is more complex. We can't really starve the cancer for methionine like we would in a petri dish. So we need chemo to help us out. And you're the great example of this.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to tell you a little trick that I've done, and I know you're probably not going to like it, but I believe it's working, and I only do it generally the day or two after I get the infusion. So I've got two of the chemo drugs in me, and the third one is pumping in me for 5 days. So my bloodstream is full of this stuff, and generally I'll fast for the first day afterwards. So I fast for 2 days before, one day after. And then when I break my fast, usually within 24 hours of breaking the fast, I will eat one egg and I'll let it in my system for about an hour. And then I'll take,
Sorry, say again, what do you do for an hour?
I eat one egg and for about an hour, I leave it in my system and I let my body absorb that for an hour. And so I know the cancer is going to go, I got some methionine.
Not that much. One egg is not that much.
No, but it's a lot more than it's getting normally. And
That's true.
something. And then after that hour, I hit myself with methionase. And then about 3 hours later, I hit it again.
There
And
you go. I
I
think
knocked
that's
it up.
a very interesting and good strategy.
Yeah, so I think what it does, and again, it's just I'm experimenting on myself, and clearly the results are not causing me harm. But I think what it does, even briefly, is it flares it up, causes it to get active, becomes a bigger target, and then poop, I shut it back off again. And I only
Well,
one
I,
time.
whatever you're doing, Joe, it's working. So, and it's working fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my little secret chess move that I play. One time.
Okay, I think it's good. Now,
Yeah.
the thing next, Joe, is I worried a little bit. Uh, you're going to see the chemo doctor on Monday.
Tomorrow I do a video conference with the chemo doctor, and then Monday I get my last infusion.
Okay, so I think what she'll understand this. I think you tell her that your target is a pathological complete response.
Okay.
Pathological complete response.
I'm
Okay,
gonna write
and
that
they
down.
abbreviate that. They love abbreviations and acronyms. So you abbreviate that with a lowercase p, uppercase C, uppercase R, PCR,
Okay.
pathological complete response. This is your goal,
Okay.
and you think you can get it with the chemo. Of course, they're going to have to take a biopsy,
Right.
but that's okay.
Yeah.
So you tell her that's my goal. I want a PCR.
Okay.
Um, PCR has another meaning in molecular biology, polymerase chain reaction, but this is pathological complete response. That
You'll
means
understand what
you
I'm
take
saying.
the biopsy, the pathologist looks at it under the microscope after a couple procedures and cannot see any more cancer cells.
Okay.
That's a pathological complete response.
Okay.
So you tell her that's what I'm going for. And then maybe discuss with her more chemo after Monday
Yeah. Yeah,
to
because that was
in order
really my
that you
thing
get
is
you want to get a PCR.
right.
Then I don't know, maybe that's enough to talk about now. Later on, we're going to talk about uh, taking some kind of chemo over long periods, perhaps a lifetime, like Chihiro is doing. We call maintenance chemo.
Right. That would likely be an oral situation, right?
It has to be something oral,
Yeah, yeah.
otherwise it's too inconvenient.
Right.
So, but I think you tell her you want a pathological complete response. You're going for that with the chemo PCR, and maybe ask her. Maybe you can get more cycles of the present chemo or
Yeah.
change the chemo. But I don't think, Joe. I don't think that you can get a PCR from just these 3 cycles.
I think you're probably right. I know that this thing took a
Of course,
long
they can
time
do
to
a
build.
biopsy on you in a couple of weeks, which is okay. It's okay. They can see. But I think you need more. And she even mentioned that it's possible that this chemo will go all the way.
Right. She did. She did.
And possibly instead of maybe before the biopsy to get something, a very, very high resolution scan, like a PET scan.
Well, what she has already suggested, and I think she's putting the order in, is this cycle. It's on 3 week cycles. So on Monday I began the third cycle, and then 3 to 4 weeks afterwards, she's ordering a scan. And she
Okay,
said,
that's perfect, Joe. Let's go for this, and then, but you can maybe start to tell her you're going for the
I
PCR.
will. Absolutely.
You look forward to the scan,
And then we'll see. Like I
and
said,
she would start thinking about either more cycles of this chemo if the scan is not perfect, or more chemo. I don't think I'm just, since the chemo is working so well, I cannot see why you should have to suffer the big side effects of the radiation. I'm
Agreed.
very concerned about that. I don't think you need it.
I agree. Well, I had a meeting with the
And you know,
radiation oncologist.
there's more chemo options. You're taking cisplatin, paclitaxel, and 5-FU.
Docetaxel.
So there's other options for uh, squamous cell head and neck cancer. There's other options for chemo. For example, the classic drug is called methotrexate.
Okay.
Methotrexate. Now there's more fancy versions of it, but this is a classic drug. There's no question head and neck cancer is sensitive to it. It's not an oral drug. There are oral versions of 5-FU. They're called prodrugs. You take the pill and the body converts it into 5-FU. But that's later. That's later when we're thinking
I
more
have
about.
this port anyways. So, I mean, if I have to do another cycle of infusions, it's already built in. It's not I can handle it.
Of course, but you have to get her agreement for it.
Agreed.
And you tell her, I think you tell her, I'm going for pathological complete response. That's what I want. And I think I can get it with chemo. PCR. She'll relate to that, Joe. She'll relate to
you're
it.
right. So I guess there's a couple of questions. So I think that, she ordered 3 cycles. That must be some kind of a standard.
That's a guideline.
Yeah. So the question would be, if there are more cycles of the same set of drugs, is it likely that it will just be less effective, or is it just?
It's a possibility.
Okay.
It's a possibility that the cells can develop some resistance. So it's probably better after these cycles to change the drug.
Got it. So I will mention the methotrexate.
You have options. Head and neck cancer has options. So anyway, you did such a good job to get her on your side. And she'll relate to that. You want a PCR.
Yeah.
And you think you can get it through chemo, and maybe, can we start a cycle of something else?
Right.
Anyway, it's time to start talking with her. She'll
tomorrow.
probably say, "Oh, we have to look at the scan," which is okay.
Sure.
But to get her starting to think about what you want is good.
Absolutely. And last week I had a video meeting with the radiation oncologist, and I hadn't talked to him since November. So obviously I was in a very different situation. Once again, he saw me and was, duly impressed. And, he works with the medical oncologist. So he knew what the strategy was. And of course, his premise was that, the standard of care today is radiation and chemo, not and typically there's surgery involved. And I said, well, you're the one who told me surgery might not be a good idea. I told him, I says, the surgeon said we got to operate. And then you said, maybe that's not a good idea because it's going to disfigure me and leave a big hole.
Very bad disfigurement, possibly.
Yeah. And I agreed with you. And then, we were going after the radiation. And then because of the inability to get the dental clearance, we came up with this idea and we went after it, and look what's happening. It's working. And he agreed. But then he comes back and he says, well, listen, our standard of care shows that if you don't get the radiation, there's a very high probability that it's going to come back. But he also acknowledged, he goes, but we don't have a model of yours, because the models that we have are generally surgery and then the radiation and chemo, not just chemo by itself. So he said, I don't really have a model to work with that is yours. And I says, okay. I said, listen, can we agree that, first of all, my goal is the most amount of good, which is to be cancer-free with the least amount of harm. That's all I'm trying to do, is save my body and get rid of this cancer. Can you sign on to that? Are you part of that thinking? And he says, yeah, I agree with that. I says, perfect. So we can work together. And I said, can you understand that this treatment that I'm taking that's working so well is one that I brought to you? I said, I'm not, claiming anything. I'm just saying that, I brought this to you, you agreed to it, or the team agreed to it, and look at how well it's working. And I said, there's a chance, in my opinion, that we can go all the way with this. And I said, for now, the plan is we're going to run the third cycle, wait 3 weeks and take a scan and see where we're at. I says, can you follow along with that and at least, say, let's just wait. And I said, look, if it comes down to I don't have another option, I'm not saying I won't do this. I'm just saying I'm trying to avoid it if I can. And he got on the right page. He agreed to sit and wait. He says, listen, my training says that it's not going to be your best choice, but it's your choice. And I says, well, I don't want to be adversarial to you. I want to consider us on the team, and I want the best option. And that's it. So we came to an understanding, and I believe that even though I know it's his training and his opinion that I need this radiation, I'm of the opinion that I don't, and that we're going to find our way through it without it. And I think that this is going to be the next move. Tomorrow, I'm going to mention the PCR. I'm going to look at a different way forward if we don't hit that mark. Because the truth is, this thing probably took 20 years to make. Am I going to undo it in 7 weeks? Probably not. But we're getting close. We're certainly, you can't deny.
Getting close.
You can't deny these results.
And we have as a model Chihiro.
Yes.
Who did the same thing.
Yes.
She did neoadjuvant chemo.
Yes.
And with the idea that would make the surgery less invasive.
Yes.
And then at the end of her neoadjuvant with her, it was 3 months of one regimen and 3 months of another regimen.
Right.
Longer than yours. But in the end, there was, by PET scans, including a methionine PET, no tumor.
Right.
And the surgeon said, oh, we'll operate now. And she said, there's nothing there. Why are we going to
What are you going to operate on?
And that was the end of that.
I love it.
So it's very hard for the radiation oncologist to say, I'm trained to do the radiation. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But this man is a thoughtful man, is a good man.
Yeah.
And he admitted he doesn't have a model like yours.
Correct.
Where you didn't do the surgery. You just did the neoadjuvant chemo, and the thing is going away. So this is out of his experience.
Exactly. And that's exactly what he said.
Probably out of the medical oncologist's experience too. It's out of their experience.
Yes.
Just as Chihiro's was as well. So okay, we got to deal with it. We're in a new realm here of that, where it didn't happen before.
Exactly.
We are.
I'm glad to be the first one to them. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you and I know that it's almost surely the fact that you're on methionine restriction,
Oh, absolutely.
diet methionase, that we've got this greatly improved result. We can't prove that, but it sure seems so. And it's out of the radiation oncologist experience. It's out of the medical oncologist experience. Okay, so we just keep going. We're in a, we're in a new realm here of the unknown, and we're learning as we go along that maybe there's a new way. Let's call it a modified way to get a better result. So you can start letting her know we're going for the PCR. Yeah, we'll do the scan, but please start thinking about either some cycles of a different chemo just to make sure, and beyond that,
Another drug that I should
long-term maintenance chemo.
Is there another drug besides the methotrexate that I should bring to her attention?
Probably is, Joe, and I'm going to ask you to do some homework.
Okay.
Please, next couple of days, look up the chemotherapy experience for squamous cell head and neck cancer. I'm sure there are other drugs, especially now. There's such a big choice of different drugs. Yeah. I'm sure there's more potential drugs for head and neck cancer.
I'll dig.
Sure.
I'll dig.
I just don't know them.
Yeah, no worries. I will find them. I will.
Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah.
So, Joe, the magic word, PCR, okay?
I got it. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, I'll be on the phone with her, video conference.
Yeah, so she may not think you know what PCR is. She may think you're talking about, you say, pathological complete response, PCR. That's what I'm going for.
Absolutely. Oh, I will.
But even that, Joe, is not perfect.
Right.
There could be cancer cells that are, even by pathology under the microscope, they're so sneaky, they may not show up in that particular biopsy. That's why I think long-term maintenance chemo is really important to prevent this cancer from coming back, any cancer from coming back.
Well, I'm going to be doing, they have a blood test that detects the virus load of the virus that's caused my cancer. The virus
load, and also the circulating cancer DNA.
Yeah, she wouldn't order that, but I'm ordering that.
Probably negative now. Now negative.
Yeah.
That's for me. I think when you have more of a tumor, much more than you have. But you could say, I'd sure like to have this test.
Yeah. Well, and also that test that you sent me last week.
You would order it for me.
Yeah.
Maybe along with the scan at that time. Along with the scan.
Right. Yeah, she's already ordering the scan, so I should have that.
Yeah. So you want the circulating cancer cells.
She wouldn't order the circulating.
I guess they call it ctDNA.
Yeah,
circulating tumor DNA, ctDNA.
She would not order that one. I asked her already, but
ask again. Say, I
will.
I want it along with the scan. I want it.
Okay. I have no problem. I'm not shy. You know that.
Deal.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, Robert. Well,
so I think at the same time as the scan, Joe. My opinion.
All right, I'm good with that. Plus that last week,
some homework to do over the next couple of days.
Oh, I'll find
to see what is the published experience of different drugs for head and neck cancer. Of course, we want to look at the more recent data, more recent publications. I am sure there's more options than just methotrexate. I think the fancy new kind of methotrexate is called something like permatrexate.
Okay. I'll find it.
It's a version of methotrexate.
All right. I'll find it and I'll tell you what I found.
You'll find it.
I will.
So we need to do our homework in advance of talking to her.
I'll be doing that tonight. I'll have answers tonight.
Okay, Joe.
All right, Robert. Well, always a pleasure. And,
Me
this time,
too. And you're a great example. I hope millions of people can see your your example. It's not only is it an inspiration, but it's a roadmap.
yes, agreed. That's what I'm offering as a roadmap. I have a lady that's going to be calling me today, and we've been talking back and forth, and she's listened to the podcast, and I'm going to be counseling her. Her son-in-law has aggressive cancer, and she's finally willing to listen to me. So I'm going to walk her through it. I'm going to invite her to Sunday's meeting, and they're starting to come to me.
Okay. Well, we can say right in advance that the son-in-law probably, we can't promise anything, but probably will benefit from methionine restriction and chemo.
Exactly.
And the chemo didn't work before. Yeah, but now we're going to try it with methionine restriction. It's a
Yeah.
different ballgame.
Entirely. It's a complete different animal, and I can attest to it 100%.
Well, you're the great example. People say, that doesn't work. Well, you say, look at me, pal.
Well, and you have to do it. You see, that's the thing. You have to do it, and that's what I know.
And before you have to do it, you have to believe in it.
Yes, indeed, 100%.
To go through all this, what you're going through, you have to have an intellectual commitment to it. It means you've done homework and you've read enough material that's convincing to you. So this is very important. The people who are skeptical,
Yeah,
they ain't gonna do it, and there's nothing we can do.
exactly. No, I agree. Well, that's the first thing. And again, that was the gift of this thing being on the outside. Nobody can deny it. When I show them the picture of what it
Nobody
was
can
like,
deny it, Joe. It's so spectacular.
yeah. And so for me to be able to say this was me 6 weeks ago and this is me today, they have to say, well, what did you do? And I can
Yeah,
tell.
they have to say.
Yeah. So there we are. All right, Robert.
Here we
Well,
are.
I appreciate you being here once again. I appreciate all the
I
work you do.
appreciate for you having me, Joe.
And we'll talk to you
Great
Sunday.
inspiration.
Excellent. You have a great trip, and I'll talk to you Sunday.
You bet. Thank you,
All right.
Joe.
It's been another edition of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.